We are, yeah, we're live. Okay.
Okay.
Take it from here, brother.
All right. So now we're broadcasting on Attention Live, and Nigel Wright, Voice CEO, Gratitude Champion, and I'm here with Ted Hahs, the Chief of Ethics. And boy, do I have a topic for you. So I spent a couple of days with a partner of mine talking about just EULA agreements. We were looking into the Hi-Ho EULA agreement, and we were interested to find out that there had been quite a bit of language in there that was a little concerning.
Tell me what a EULA agreement is. I know I'm ignorant, but
you are not. A EULA agreement, end user licensing agreement.
For end user licensing agreement for what?
For a application, for a platform where you basically do Q&As and it's like a TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, all of them
unnamed. Could be anyone.
Right. So looking at this particular end user license agreements, we discovered that there was language in there that very clearly stated that, in a nutshell, and I'm paraphrasing here, basically, we will take your content, we will use it, we will monetize it, we will give you no money for that forever. And while I understand that we don't have the time to go into it in super detail here, but we will have an expanded conversation for the conversation starter. But while we understand there's certain access we're giving these platforms when we join them, I think the particular language in this particular EULA agreement, not that I've read all of them, was a little stronger and a little more up in your face, so to speak, than I've seen before. Maybe I'm just ignorant to the other ones that exist, and we're going to go through them as time goes on. That's one of the reasons we wanted to have these conversations and why I wanted to speak to you, Ted. Now, add to
this, I like this because user agreements are public, so we can talk about them.
Correct.
So Facebook publishes their user agreement. That's the whole point of a user agreement. It'd be interesting to actually read them. We'd probably be the only people who've ever read them.
We are going to do that. And the next conversation you and I have will be around that Hi-Ho, EULA agreement, because I've been talking about it. I actually have a scheduled call with an actual attorney that's going to talk a little bit about his views on it. And again, a partner of mine, he's a independent publisher. And with his knowledge of copyrights, we've been really fascinated by this whole thing and are super interested to get people's feedback and take on it. Does it matter? Do they care? All the above. But the piece I wanted to piggyback on top of this, just to kind of get the juices flowing or season the meat before we get into it, is there's a case now with a Beverly Standings where she filed a lawsuit a few days ago or less than a week ago against TikTok for using her voice as the voice of TikTok. And apparently, according to her, she hasn't given any permission. And this was a story that I just read in the National. She's from Canada. I'll just look at it on my computer right now. National Post is where I saw the story. And it came to my attention by Dr. Terry Fisher. He was talking about how he planned to, we're having a talk about this in about 10 minutes, in a discussion on synthetic versus human voice. And my question to you, Ted, specifically is this. The fact that someone can they talk about, we're going to use your likeness and image and things of that nature. Do you think, well, first, just from your view is what's right, wrong, fair, equitable, however you want to term it. Do you think that should extend to someone taking your voice and manipulating it in a way that anybody can type in a phrase and make your voice or the appearance of your voice sound or say anything?
No, without of course not. Well, I mean, that's a tool. So I get it. On one hand, I always like to say the positive and the negative.
Right.
on one hand, that could be very, very meaningful for, like, imagine if we could, Martin Luther King, we take everything he ever said, learn from it, imitate his, recreate his voice and his mannerisms. I think that could be very, very cool. Now, I would want it to be clear that it's not him, what's him and what's based upon him. There would have to be some transparency, but I think that the potential of that technology could, like anything, could be used for good. But like nuclear energy, the more potential for good, often the more potential for bad.
Well, but do you think without
like,
compensation to the
oh no. That's to me, that's just good old fashioned theft.
Well, I would tend to agree with you.
I mean, I think that's pretty cut and dry, and it'd be interesting to see how they twist it. And
I'm curious to see how this case is going to play out, because I feel like it can be precedent setting.
Yeah.
Which I'm looking forward to, because I feel that, look, I have a hard time believing when people write these agreements, they are unaware of what it is they're doing.
The people who sign them, or the people who write them?
The people who write them.
Oh, the people who write them know exactly what they're doing. Those user agreements come out of lawsuits. So you have a simple one, some lawsuit, they change the wording to address that specific lawsuit, and it just evolves. And you'll notice that all of them are all kind of similar, and they're also trying to push the limits of what they can get you to commit to. And then, it's how much fine print will the law allow, which is, pushing the limit, and then you're going to have to see is it's very interesting. I'd like to see where it ends up.
Yeah, I mean, so here's the thing. I mean, the law is the law, and that's how people word it, and I get it. It's business, all that other good stuff. But I
don't know if you can say the law is the law, because this is like, to me, it's much more because there's so much there's plenty of room for manipulation.
Yes, and that's what I mean. I'm not a real fan of I'm just going to put whatever I can and then just blanket policy say, well, if it doesn't apply, then it doesn't count. I see way too much of that. I think that there's not a lot.
Right now, I think I'm sorry, I don't want to cut you off. You finish your thought.
No, I just feel like, it's a lazy way of doing things. And that's the piece that concerns me, because
I don't know if I'd describe it as lazy. I understand exactly what you're saying. To me, it's an unethical way of doing things.
Okay, well, you know what?
Insincere, unaligned. So to me right now, you have, let's take Apple, for example.
Right.
I'm interested to see where they go, because they took a bold stance standing for privacy. Okay. So Apple has they're positioning their brand as, we're the ones that are going to protect your privacy.
Right.
Now, when the rubber really hits the road, I wonder if they're really going to do that, because right now you sign a user agreement with Apple, and it's the same sort of mumbo jumbo with Facebook and other platforms. Apple's in a different position because they're not a social media platform. So they're not building they don't have this huge amount of revenue coming from selling your data, other than, their revenue is coming from other places. So it's a different business model. But what I'm saying is, you have a brand that's presenting themselves as one way, like, we care about you, we're coming to serve you. But on the other hand, it's unaligned, because really you're the product, and we're trying to milk you for all that you're worth. We say we want to enhance your life, but we don't really want to enhance your life. We want to get your attention, and we want to sell it, and we want to manipulate. We want to help our partners manipulate you to do things that they want you to do, mainly eventually buy their product, somehow give them your money. So you have these things that are conflicting odds with each other, and eventually they're gonna come to a crisis, and you're gonna have to choose one or the other. And
Yeah, I mean, I think you're hitting it on the head. I think the ethics is really. I'm just, again, I look forward to our next conversation where we actually dig into the specific EULA agreements to put a finer point on it, because I think some stuff is necessary. Like you said, a lot of it is born out of lawsuits and protecting oneself, and that's fine. But I also think, to your other point, it's what you can get away with and what you can get you to agree to. I just think that I have this saying, once you become aware, you can no longer justify being irresponsible. And me
Can't
loving
stop seeing, yeah.
and loving humans, I feel obligated to make people aware, because I would want somebody else to make me aware. And I feel like there's so much good, like you said, that can come out of this. But at the same time, there is folks who will take this and perverse it into something that was never meant to be or shouldn't be, in my opinion. And this is where, like you said, the rubber meets the road, and where I really want to begin our conversation about tech and ethics, and how we can create impact as opposed to just dancing around the subjects and just playing in the space and going,
and being
wow.
more than just anarchists that are rebels like we were when we were kids and just saying
Right.
everybody's evil. And then, you grow up and you end up, suddenly you realize you were just as evil as them. You were part of the cycle. So here's a thought I want to leave you with.
Sure.
So my ethical philosophy is that, when we talk of triple or quadruple bottom lines, so if I go into business with Nigel, I want it to be good for me and good for Nigel and good for the environment, good for the community. Okay. I believe that's actually truth. And so I believe that goes backwards as well. The same way that, if you smile naturally when you're happy, but if you force yourself to smile, you'll end up being more happy.
Right.
I believe that businesses that manipulate those may get a short-term advantage, but they're sabotaging they're sabotaging themselves. So if I'm going into business and I end up saying that I'm trying, it's good for you and it's good for me, and it's not, and it's also not good for the community, it's not going to be good for me either. It's going to hurt me too. And that those things are eventually going to come up. Okay. What I see, so when I see an ethical problem, I also see a market opportunity. And I think we have a huge market opportunity. And I keep looking at this like, Capernaum was the guy that said the earth is not at the center of the universe, the sun is. And he gave a new model of the universe, and it solved all these problems. Right? Okay. What's interesting about that story is that initially that was not seen as a great breakthrough. It was just seen as a little mathematical innovation.
Right.
And it was only later that the implications, it took a while for the paradigm shift implications to really hit. What's amazing is not how accurate he was, but how accurate these extremely, extremely complex mathematical equations they had to track the movement of the planets were. So they had them moving in like these circles like this, very complex movements.
Right.
And they had worked at it that this complex system was able to give relatively accurate predictions. So Capernaum didn't bring like radically huge advances in the calculations. He just greatly simplified the method. I just see this as
how the simplicity always brings out the greatest results. I think we overcomplicate a lot of things.
Exactly. So I see these very complex user agreements are basically the big person trying to prove that they're legally right, which theoretically legal is ethical. Now, we know there's a big distinction between legal and ethical because our legal systems aren't aligned with fully, they're still manipulated. And it's extremely complex situation to try to say, oh, I told you ahead of time, so everything I'm doing is right. It's okay. It's good. But everybody can smell a rat. It's like, wait, the poop's on somebody's foot. I can smell it. So,
Well,
and I feel that there's going to be a paradigm shift, and it's going to be extremely simple, and it's actually going to align the interests of the platform with the users. And there's a place for these advertisers in business. Like, we're pro business. And I think we're going to understand there'll be a major paradigm shift that brings it all into alignment and will radically simplify user agreements to where people actually can read them and understand them.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's room for it. Like you said, there's great opportunity there. And I'm just gonna like close with this. If we're not finding those opportunities where you can build, which is what I like to talk about, because what's the point? If I'm not able to build, you and I are able to build, and we're building, right? So it like, if I was with somebody who I couldn't build with, they would be taking up space for me that could be better used, for humanity, for me, for that other person, to be filled with something that can build something greater than either one of us individually. The 1 + 1 = 11 is like I like to say. It's just, I think, yeah, like there's room for it. I never understood why it needs to be, for me to win, you have to lose, or vice versa, which I don't think is a real thing. I think it's just something that people concoct in their head, and then
it becomes real because you believe it. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy, and then and then we build all these systems around it to further reinforce it.
Yeah, and anything that seems like success, around that is just going to give it further energy. Is going to fuel it even more, and have other people believing that that's proof that this is the way to go.
Eventually, those things collapse on themselves.
Absolutely.
Eventually. And we, as people of faith and as of ethicists and vision, I think they will. Like, we look back and we see, wow, the Soviet Union, it collapsed on itself because it was a bad system. And you can go throughout history with that. So, I'm very, very optimistic.
Yeah, I am too. I definitely am. And I think these conversations are going to be the start of it. I think our commitment to doing better, even if it's just in our opinion, I think is going to at least, spark the spirited debate that's necessary to move the needle forward. So with that, what I'm gonna close this out, and I'm gonna look forward to our conversation where we start digging into these end user licensing agreements together. And not
we're gonna solve two issues. We're gonna make one of those called those videos people listen to fall asleep. We'll read it word for word to put people to sleep.
I don't want it to be that, because I think this is going to spark the conversation, because I for one am not interested, and as we discussed previously, I'm not looking to do this in a vacuum. Our opinions are great, and we can have this conversation, but I want to make sure that we're bringing in the commentary, the feedback, the diversity of many other groups to see what people feel. So whether it be going out on Clubhouse or going out on LinkedIn, sending people messages and saying, what do you think about this? And then bringing that feedback into the conversation, so that we're not so silo in our focus. Because we may be thinking one thing like, oh, this is terrible. And everybody was like, it's all right. We don't know. And we don't know until we ask, in my opinion. So I, for one, am all for asking, and I look forward to, just digging in.
Do it. All right. Now you're gonna go jump on Clubhouse with Terry Fisher, right? All right. So if you're watching this live, jump on Clubhouse and follow Nigel Wright and Terry Fisher.
Yes, indeed. Ted Hahs, you are a gentleman, Mr. Ethics, over Attention Live. I appreciate you taking this time for this conversation starter, and I genuinely look forward to our deeper discussion on these EULA agreements and anything else that affects, the consumers on these platforms and what we see as opportunities to build versus opportunities to just simply exploit in the negative. If
Love
that's
it. I love it. All
Yeah.
right. Well, look forward to continuing. All right, you have a great day.
A pleasure, my friend. Be well. I'm Nigel Wright, Voice CEO and Gratitude Champion. I would love to know what you think, and I'm done speaking. Take care.